Hey friends, welcome to the Garden of Mutual Delights. I am Jeremy Grafe, and my guest today is brilliant improviser, Shakespeare teacher, and Robert Plant stunt double, Doug Wallace.
Hello.
So,
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see.
usually the first thing that I ask anybody who's on the show is what got you into your passion? So the whole point of this show is just to get people talking about what lights them up.
All right.
So Doug is a wonderful actor, so I wanted to find out a little about what got you into acting in the first place.
All right. I grew up playing sports. I was a big hockey player, and I played baseball and soccer. You know, most of the sports that no girls will ever come and watch. But anyway, and acting was something someone else did. So I didn't participate in school or anything. I mean, sports kind of asks you to go away, and the drama club was always home. So there was no chance. I took an acting class my sophomore year in college because I thought it would be an easy A. It's called beginning acting. I figured we're all beginners. We're not going to do anything for anybody, and it's just going to be us, and we're all going to be rotten. So it'll be great. And then about a week into the class, we got assigned positions to be part of the production that was going on at the time, or that was being mounted, and it was Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare.
And I'm guessing you didn't get stage crew.
I did not, and I got three parts. I got Leonardo, the servant to Bassanio. Yes, the guy actually has a name, even though he only has two lines in the whole show. I was so proud of that and scared to death. And then the other two parts were non-speaking. I literally carried a flaming torch, and then I was one of the judges in the big trial scene with a beard, and we had to go, yes, very nice. And I went to the professor afterwards, and I said, "Look, man, I can build sets, I can do construction, I can paint. I don't really want to be an actor." And
how did that go?
And he says, "Well, are you in the habit of telling your other professors what you will and won't do for their class?" I'm like,
"Sure."
I go, "No." And he goes, "Oh, so you don't take acting seriously?" And I'm like, "No." I know, God has a sense of humor, because here I am all these years later. So anyway, I'm watching these people, and they're amazing, and they're basically my age, and they got pages and pages of Shakespeare.
Oh yeah.
And I was an English major, so I knew what they were saying. And it was amazing, and I was really impressed and scared at the same time. And I remember the night before opening, I couldn't get any sleep. And all during the day, every time I thought about that night, it was like this shong electric thing in my stomach that was just awful. And I remember walking over to the theater. And as I'm walking across the campus, I was thinking to myself, if the theater burnt down right now, it wouldn't bother me. And this other voice in my head.
It's kind of an extreme way to get out of it.
Right. This other voice in my head's like, "What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Really? What's wrong with you?"
Right.
Like, there are people that, are going to carry the show. And meanwhile, I walk into the locker room, the dressing room, but I've never called it a dressing room. It's the locker room. Acting's a sport. It really is, and it's great. And working here at the Renaissance Faire, I get to do everything.
Yeah.
I've gotten to do everything. I've fallen out of buildings. I sword fight. It's a sport. So there you go. Anyway, I get to the theater, and I go walking into the locker room there, and all the guys are laughing. They're joking around, and I'm like, "What are you doing? We're all about to die. I mean, what if you forget your lines? You have pages, man, pages. You should be studying."
Book.
Yeah, I've got my script with 2 lines highlighted. I took it into the wings with me. I'm standing there going, "Oh man, they're a page from my entrance. They're on the page of my entrance. Oh man." And I put it down on the floor, and I walked out there, and the moment those lights hit me, this realization hit me. Like, I know everything that's going to happen and why for the next couple of minutes. Mm-hmm. And I did it. And it was great. I didn't care about the audience. I'm not a real outgoing kind of person. Pretty shy actually, and until I get around my friends, and then I'm normal. But I got off the stage, and it was sort of like, have you ever jumped off a high dive or a cliff or something, where you were high, or a bridge, and the first time it's a little scary, but the second time you can't get up there fast enough. It
Yes.
was like that. I'm like, I don't care. This is better than real life because I don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing or somebody misinterpreting what I'm saying or feeling like there's something wrong with me or being judged.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to find my way out back up on this stage. And so I studied and I auditioned and I got in shows because I don't know. I guess I had a little knack for it, and I worked really hard and I would pick everybody's brain. That was the thing that I did. I was because I knew nothing, and all these people basically had grown up in theater. They'd done acting since they were in grade school, and I so I really did. I picked their brain, and I would ask almost everybody all the same questions, and I got wherever the answers kind of matched up. I could take that to the bank,
Yeah.
and I kind of locked and loaded. And I didn't have time to read all these books on acting. Plus, reading books on acting are great once you're acting, but if you're just starting out, it's sort of like reading about how to ride a bicycle or hit a baseball. At
Yeah.
some point you have to actually experience those things, and then you can read about technique.
Yeah.
And so I did everything I could, and by the time I realized that you have to be emotionally naked and vulnerable on stage in order to be truthful, and so that people will suspend the disbelief and actually buy into you being that character, it was too late for me. I was already hooked on the whole. I love the fact that these words are on a page, and now we're going to make them come alive. And I find that fascinating. We're group storytellers, and it's just, I don't know. It goes back all the way to early humans and the fight, the hunt. We come back and, oh yeah, it was great. Here's how we did it. And then you act it out, and it's all part of the celebration. And so I've always loved theater for that kind of thing. And so then my senior year, I went to these national auditions at Penn State, and those auditions, the Renaissance Fair goes to those too. They usually go to the one in Tennessee, and there's another one at East Carolina University, and Boston, Atlanta, in New York. There's different places where they go, and Boston too. And anyway, everyone in the audience has jobs. So you go out there and you do your bit, your comic and serious classical monologue, and you sing 14 bars or 30 seconds a cappella. And then after that, you hope that people call you back. And from that, I got two jobs. I got a job in North Carolina, and then another one that started in July in Massachusetts at Summer Stock in Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires, which was fantastic. And then it hit me. I don't really know that much about acting because I've really only been acting like a year and a half. And I'm scared. And I'm worried because I come from a sports background. People that are new at the sport, it's hard to play with them. And you size them up fairly well, and then you realize that you then have to sort of cover for them, as you had to be covered for when you weren't good. And I was like, I'm going to be that guy. They're all these old guys are going to know that I'm a new actor. They're not going to trust me out on stage, and trust is huge. It's massive, and I don't want them to not trust me. Like, honestly, I didn't even know all the theater vocabulary. I mean, and I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? So I had room on my schedule for one more class my senior year, so I created a class, and my final exam, it was called actor-audience relationship, my final exam was I did the one-man show of Clarence Darrow, that Henry Fonda did on Broadway. It's kind of cool. 90 minutes, only you. You always had the next line. I don't know how cool it was for the audience, especially since I only had a year and a half of experience.
Yeah.
But I gave it my all,
Yeah.
and apparently I did all right because I auditioned the piece when I was in Massachusetts because they needed a couple of shows to fill a gap between when one show closed and another show opened. Because it's in summer stock, you're rehearsing during the day and doing shows at night and matinees and things like that. And so you're always rehearsing and performing and rehearsing and performing, which is really cool. And they needed a couple shows, and I said, well, I could do this show, and I did it for them, and I drove home and got my Clarence Darrow suit. One day I missed rehearsals and drove down and then drove back, and it was great. And then I did it, so then I did it professionally, which who knew, and so I got to do that in Massachusetts, and it was kind of fun and scary all at the same time because they're a real theater going audience there.
Yeah.
We could hear Tanglewood when you went outside of our theater.
Yeah.
We were in Lenox, Massachusetts, and anyway, I created this class for me to try to give me some sort of experience, like in an exponential way. Mm-hmm. And again, I did all this research. I worked. Again, I asked all kinds of questions of all my friends, anybody that I could get a hold of. I also asked friends to contact friends. Like I really if there's anything that I do in this world, it's research. You can ask anybody here. I have mountains of research, and I believe that I use it all, but I can't actually say that, oh yeah, I used everything that I researched. But I feel like everything I did to research, some part of it absorbed into me, or gave it perspective, or something. And I really think that enhances my characters. And anyway, so I did all this research, and I come back from Massachusetts in November because they decided that they would keep this one actress and me and do two Leonard Melfi one-act plays back to back, with the interval, and that was great. The problem was in 1981, in 1983 there was a drought that summer. And so the leaves in Massachusetts basically changed over 2 weekends. And so there we are in October, and we're performing these shows, and we did the show for about 3 weeks, 8 shows a week. And the audience is just brutal. And we had to do the shows because even if we weren't equity at the time, but even if we were, there's only 2 of us in the show, so... Yeah. Any more than 2 people show up, we have to do the show. Actually, if just one person shows up, that would be the only time we couldn't do the show. So we did all the shows, but our paychecks went down significantly, and we basically lived on Snickers bars and coffee, and Snickers don't really satisfy at that point. I don't think they were made for that. They're not really a meal. So I have nothing against Snickers. So we did that. And I decided I would pop down to Gettysburg, where I went to college, and see the fall show. And I got there, and a bunch of my friends are like, dude, did you see the new course catalog? I'm like, of course I didn't. And here's my class. It's got a real number and everything. Right. And this was cool. Prerequisites. You can't just take this class. People. I felt so good. I was like, wow, I created a class. This is cool because I'm now going to be a professional actor, which means I will not be able to send money to my alma mater. But I gave them a class in which they can make money.
That's right.
So I figured, all right, that's good enough. How long can you live with that? Because it's been in a few years since I graduated. So, yeah, you think there's still the shelf life?
Is the class still running?
Yeah.
Then you're good.
Okay, good. Yeah. See, because I feel like it's an endowment.
Right. That's right. Hey, backing up a little bit, Doug.
Yeah.
So that initial, one of the things that I'm hearing that you really loved about acting initially was everything was kind of on rails. Like you had a script, you knew everything that was going to happen, and that wasn't normal
Absolutely.
life. But now you're like more of an improv guy. So where did that switch happen?
Oh man, so down in North Carolina, we were in Ocracoke
Okay.
Island, which is where Blackbeard was killed, and they do a musical for the tourists there every year, and I was part of that. I not a singer. No, they asked me to come down and direct it. And while I was there, I met some people who did the Island Cabaret at one of the two pubs that were there at the time, and so I was in an ongoing soap opera for the weeks that I was there, and it was called The Hung and the Useless, and it was, yeah. Mercifully, I was in the first group, so I was proud of myself, and that was my first real taste of improv. But it was okay because if you just throw yourself into it, and the people I was working with were really good at it, but not intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were really gifted at making you look good, which is the goal of improv.
Yeah.
You should try to make the other person look good, which is hard to do sometimes because you're so concerned about making sure that you hold up or that you're on, or and I'm not trying. You're not trying to one up anybody. It's just that you're concerned about your own performance.
Mm-hmm.
But if you kind of let go of that and really, try to give the other person, the soft pitch that will allow them to hit it out of the park. To me, there's nothing better than being the straight man, because it's you've got to kind of set up the clever and then you hand it to them and let them go, and it's kind of cool. Nobody notices that, but all the right people that are in it, they all know, and they're like, dude, that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't know, I feel like it's harder, and I like a challenge. Which is, I don't know, even when I have an easy thing, I make it hard somehow. and so then for the rest of my professional career, I didn't do improvisation at all. And then I was in a flop in New York City that mercifully closed after about a month. I won't mention the name of the show just in case, I don't know, somebody's watching. But it was the kind of show that you've already seen on HBO way too many times. But the playwright, it was about him, so it was semi-autobiographical.
Uh-huh.
If you get a chance to be in a play where you're playing the playwright, skip it.
Important professional advice, friends.
I'm telling you right now, because he kept, after rehearsal, and rehearsal is a big discovery. You're telling a story, and you try things in rehearsal that are guaranteed not to work, but some part of it may be useful. It may help you get at the truth. After every rehearsal, he was like, "Well, I would never do that. I didn't do this way. This is the way I did it. This is the way I heard the line in my head, and this is the way." And it's just like, well, then you do it. I even talked to my agent. I said, "Can I quit? Because this play is bad." And the director, who's from the Juilliard School, which I don't know, is pretty good. And I thought, this is going to be great. And it was horrible, and she wasn't very good, and she wasn't helpful. And my agent's like, "You don't have a name in New York, so if you quit, you won't have any name at all, and it'll have a black ball on it." And I said, "Okay, fine." Because I had just gotten to the kind of, like, I wasn't in the cattle calls anymore. I was in that bottleneck where lots of times I would show up and there'd be 20 guys look just like me.
Mm-hmm.
I was finally to that point.
Right.
Where it was going to be one of the 20 of us in this room was getting the part.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes
Sometimes it was me. Lots of times it was somebody else. But anyway, so I was in that, and then it was an awful experience, and I was also older. Now I'm in my 30s, and I'm like, is this really? And my wife at the time said, you know what? Why don't you've been working every holiday, you never had any time off. Why don't you just take the summer off? We can afford it. Just take the summer off. And I'm like, okay. So I went down to. I've been going to mass in Camden, New Jersey, with Father Doyle, because he's just an incredible human being. He just retired last summer, and so I went to daily mass, and we always have coffee in the rectory afterwards because there's only about 12 or 15 of us, so it's great. And we're sitting around, and he's like, "Oh, so Doug, what are you doing? How's the acting going?" I was like, "I took the summer off," which is, again, never let a priest know that you have free time. It's another rule
Yes.
that you might want to follow.
Yes. It's yeah.
You know, so I was like, oh man, yeah, I'm not doing anything. And he says, oh great, how would you like to help me build a prayer garden? And I'm like, sure, why not? It's going to be perfect. I don't have to get dressed up. I'm going to be out in the hot sun. This is great. I'm going to get dirty. I'm excited. So I did that in the summer, and I'm really dirty and muddy. And then I looked over and I saw the school, and my mom was always, you would be a great teacher. I'm like, Mom, I can't have a fallback position. If I have any kind of a safety net, when I go to auditions, I'm going to lose out to the guy who's going to lose his home or his apartment if he doesn't get this job. Mm-hmm. Like, I will not have that killer instinct. I know you don't understand that, but just trust me. Please stop saying and stop offering me alternatives. Mm-hmm. Please, I got to do this.
And yet...
So I look over at the school and I go, I know what? This will shut my mom up. I'll go get on the substitute list. I'll go in there. It'll be horrendous because it's inner city Camden. It is poverty stricken. You're
really good with the famous last words, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's my whole life. It's as soon as I say something demonstratively, the opposite is going to happen.
Important safety tip, friends. When he starts making pronouncements,
yes,
just be aware.
Just be ready to say, I told you so. Because you know the opposite is going to happen. And so anyway, I go over to the principal, and she says, you need to go up to the diocesan office in some other part of Camden. And I'm like, okay, great. So I'm like, I'm not doing that. And so I'm working out in the garden, and man, we're having the best time. We're all there's a bunch of us working, and these guys are all really skilled at the things that they do. And it was great because I didn't mind lugging stuff because we were joking around and having a great time. And I don't know, a couple of weeks go by, and they said, hey, when you get a break, the principal wants to see you over at the school. So I go over there, and I'm looking my best.
Oh, yeah.
Dusty dirt, like in sweat with the running dirt. And so I washed my hands. And
nice clean spots.
I had this faded New York Yankees hat, and I go over and I said to her, I said, do you want me to, should I take my hat off? And I took my hat off, and like, there was a cloud. And she goes, no, you can leave it on. And I swear I put it on, and there was another cloud. I can't really know if that's true, but that's how I remember it. And she says, so tell me about yourself. So I told her about I had been a camp counselor where we actually had to write lesson plans in Maine, and we actually had to know what we were talking about. And then I talked about some acting classes that I had run, because it's always good to be working. And so in between jobs, you need to be practicing. So it's really, if you play a guitar, you just practice your guitar. But if you're an actor, how do you do that? Mm-hmm. And one of the things is you can take classes. I took classes at HB Studios, which is I highly recommend that school. Uta Hagen and her husband Herbert Berghoff started that school back in the 50s, and it's still going strong today. It's down on Bank Street. Anyway, you can look it up. HB Studio. A lot of famous people have gone there, and they make you work, and it's fantastic, and it's not expensive. And so I was doing that, and then we were also just getting together and sharing what we had learned and working on scenes together, and then critiquing each other and just getting into discussions and doing readings and things like that. So anyway, I explained to her, this is I've never taught in front of a class, like formal teaching. She goes, I think you'd be all right. The grade 6 teacher is going out on maternity leave, so you could have the job for a year. I was like, really? Wait a minute. For the first time in my life, I can see a year's worth of paychecks lined up in front of me, and I go to one address for my job, and I have a parking place. Like this was like found gold. I couldn't believe it. Like I could actually make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow.
And you'd have off for the holidays.
Yes. Possible snow days. So Tuesday before the school opens, it was the day after Labor Day. We're having our big teachers meeting, and we get our class list. And I look down, and one of the Vietnamese children, his first name is Phuc. And I'm like, really? It's my first time teaching, and this is how I start? So I go to the principal. I said, hey, could you tell me how to pronounce this child's name? And she goes, I don't know. He's new. And I'm like, no, please.
Just ask.
This job is hard enough. She goes, I'll tell you, Hannah, here's what you do. You say everybody else's name. And then you ask if you missed anybody. And when he raises his hand, you call on him and you pretend to write his name down. And I'm like, I'll follow you to the gates of hell, lady. You're amazing. And she is. She's a great principal. She's really cool. She's like, here, follow the curriculum, follow the state curriculum, follow the diocese curriculum. She goes, but in that following, you have all the creativity in the world. You keep me in the loop. Because when I field phone calls, I don't want to be ignorant. And I'm like, deal. And so I was able to come up with all these cool creative lessons, and I loved it. And by October, I was loving the kids and loving doing it. And I was like, man, I hope she doesn't come back. And then finally, in February, I go to my mailbox, and there's a Post-it note, a yellow Post-it note. I think I have it saved somewhere. It says, job's yours if you want it. And I stayed there for 14 years. Wow. I loved it. I stopped acting. I was like, nope, I'm going to totally commit to working with these inner city kids that are great kids. They're just fantastic. They just live in a really bad neighborhood that retards their progress or retards their hopefulness. Mm-hmm. But other than that, they're just like every other kid that you know. And man, and I loved working with them. And then we came to the Renaissance Fair in 2005, and I saw him doing Shakespeare on the Globe, and I was like, man, if I could do that, I could do anything. Shakespeare outdoors on that Globe Theater stage, oh, that'd be great. And Justice White was there, and we found out years later that he and I had been at HB Studio together at the same time, and even had even worked together, but we didn't remember that because, well.
Oh, we have a question from Carlos. He wants to know, how did you pronounce the guy's name?
Oh yeah, it's Phuc, by the way. Phuc Nguyen was his name. Is his name, and he drew me this really cool drawing, pen and ink drawing of cranes, and I have had that in every classroom that I've taught ever since. Yeah, he's fantastic, and yep, what a great kid who's now
Not a kid.
Nope, he's in his 30s. I can't believe I forgot to mention that, but yes, and so.
Oh, Carlos will keep us legal.
Yeah, thank you for that. I apologize, so I did a little research and I found out that the professional actors live here in the summer, and I have summers off. I'm like, hey, so. And then you only work weekends. And so I auditioned and I got in and they gave me a special deal because once school started, I'm not here during the week.
Right.
So they cut me a different kind of contract, that not the normal one, obviously for less money. I didn't care. I had insurance.
Right.
And I had a nice day job that was great, and so it was fun too, because then I got to teach Shakespeare and I got to be in Shakespeare, and it was cool, and so I did that, and that year I was in Shakespeare, and the next year, at that point they had you audition every year, and so I got cast in 2007, and in 2008, I was a lead, and it was really funny because it was Kelly was the Queen, and Kevin Stillwell was Ivan the Terrible, and Justice played Ivan the Terrible's right hand man, and I played Queen Elizabeth's right hand man. And the four of us had 9 gazillion lines. We were in like all kinds of shows. Joust was epic. It was longer than it is now, and the lines were just these gorgeous epic lines about true love and Helena Troy, and I mean, it was so fun to say them. And then what was really a great experience about that is all summer long we're rehearsing to an empty sort of stadium, if you will.
Yeah.
And so you rehearse and you get a certain cadence down and things just seem to be. And then opening day, the audience reacts in places that you're not expecting.
And they're real loud.
Yes, they are deafening. And so now you have to pause, and then coupled with, at that point, I had to either speed up or slow down depending on how the knights were doing with their horses. If their horses were ready to go, I had to go. I had to cut whatever I was doing, or if a helm got dropped or a shield or something, then I had to extend what I was saying.
Oh, I know how that works.
So yeah, so I spent every downtime where you were supposed to be studying or learning lines. The way rehearsal worked, it was in like periods, and so you'd have certain periods off certain days, and you'd have a weekly schedule. So every time I had a free period, I would go down to the joust and work with the guys with the horses, because I needed to know what was going on, and I needed to be able to know things innately, and for safety and for everything else.
Oh yeah.
And you were a squire, so you know.
Oh yeah.
Far more.
Walk through. I mean, so same joust company. I mean, still noble cause. And Brian's super disciplined about running a walkthrough before every show.
Yeah.
So like every line, every bit of blocking, even if we've done exactly the same show 36 times in a given season, like we'll still do the walkthrough.
Yep.
And all the expectations are there.
Yeah. Now, actually, in 2008, it was the joust was in-house.
Okay.
Scott had just taken over that year, like officially as the sole owner. Apparently, when Chuck, the old owner, was getting ready to leave, he had like a 5-year plan that he and Scott worked out, so that, because I mean, it's like running a town. Like, you can't just do this.
No.
This is I wouldn't wish it on an enemy.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Oh man, I can't even. So I don't know all the intrigue, but the joust company was actually in house all year round. That's why the joust could be this epic thing. And, and they wrote it.
Yeah.
And and like Kevin was in. He's been in a bunch of movies, and so he knows what he's doing. And John Lucas is just a super talented human being. I believe he has his own gym now, and he's a super in shape bodybuilder in the area. Really, really a cool guy. But anyway, I digressed, and so I've been here a couple of years, and my students were like, "Hey, man, you do professional theater. Why don't you direct us in a show?" And I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "That's a lot of work." So then I thought, well, if I'm going to put in that work, then it's going to be Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And the kids were like, "We don't care what it is. It's fine." And so we did Romeo and Juliet because we figured that way that's the one that at least the audience knows the story,
Mm-hmm.
and or most of it. And we worked on it, and it was incredible. And it was for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade 6, 7, and 8. That's it. I was strict about it. This grade 5 kid kept bugging me. His name's Damir. I will never forget him. We're Facebook friends, Damir and I. Anyway, I'm like, "Okay, you can come to rehearsal, but you have to have a permission slip from your grandmother. You can come to rehearsal." So he comes to rehearsal, and he's sitting in there. He's watching. So one of the public performances, I think it was the second one, Romeo, I get a phone call. Romeo has his stomach flu. He's throwing up like nobody's business. I'm like, "Well, what do I do? I don't have an understudy or anything." And Damir goes, "Well, if you read the lines in the wings, I'll mouth them." And he goes, "I'll play Romeo." I'm like, it was great too, because he's like a foot shorter than Juliet,
Right.
who's in grade 8.
Right.
And Romeo is in grade 8. And I'm like, "All right, well, let's see." And he goes, "And by the way, I know the fights." I'm like, "Really? You know the fights?" And so we ran through the fights, and he was really good with the fights. Like, so we rehearsed them. That was what we spent the most time on, because
Safety.
even though the swords are plastic, you want it to look real, and they were really good at treating the swords like they were real.
Mm-hmm.
So then the audience didn't have any problem buying into their,
Yeah.
And he went on that night, and that was it. I was like, "Whoa!" And then he had leads from there on out. Like, he was a superhero, and I love telling his story, because his story was he put himself out there. He made the first move. He didn't wait to be asked. And I don't know. He came to me, and he wouldn't leave me alone, and he just was happy sitting there watching rehearsal, putting in his time for next year.
Yeah.
Like, what kid does that? I mean,
Do
I
more.
had done it with sports. I'd done similar kinds of things, but I didn't. I don't know. I didn't expect it, and man, it was fantastic. And he was such an inspiration to everybody at the school. And anyway, and so now I love telling his story. I tell his story here at the fair, because it's those are the things that make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like Father Doyle always said, if you want God to give you a hand, you got to lift your finger. You got to do something first.
Yeah.
Just show up. And it's amazing. I can't tell you how many times I've had a goal, and I'll set out to do it, and I'll fall off that path, and then I wind up in this place that's even better. And it's like, but if I hadn't started out, then I wouldn't be there. So then I met my wife here, fell in love, and yes, I discovered true love. It really does exist. Isn't that amazing? and I mean, my parents had it, but they were my parents. It doesn't really like only in a perspective do I get it now. But growing up with it, it was just normal.
Right.
Anyway, uh, and so I moved out here, and apparently, when you cross the Delaware River from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, you lose the ability to teach. Yes, they wouldn't honor my New Jersey public and private license. Like I had 2 licenses. And I taught in Camden.
Right.
I feel like if I was a Camden cop and then I was going to be a Lancaster cop, I think they would have gone, "You're welcome. Please come. You've got all this experience."
Yeah,
maybe you lose some seniority and vacation and stuff like that, the normal things.
Right.
Like I expected that. Oh no. So I wound up teaching at a couple of adjudicated facilities. Let's just call them that. In other words, in order to see me as your teacher, you had to see a judge first. And
I don't recommend trying that at home.
No. You get told what to eat, when to eat. Oh no.
Yeah.
You don't want it. When to go to bed. No, it's not a good thing. However, I met Jeff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Jeff Wolfthal. And this is actually a really good segue because the two of you have a show that you're going to be bringing back to Pennsylvania Ren Fair this year.
Yep.
And the debut performance of the two of you as the duo of Woo is this Friday at the kickoff concert for Celtic Fling, which is this weekend.
Yes.
So the link for tickets for that should be hopping up in the chat now. I would get your tickets now because they are apparently going away very quickly.
Yes, if it's not sold out already.
And the weather looks gorgeous. Mm-hmm. So the Duo of Woo was one of my favorite shows when I first came to the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair in the early 90s. And I know it's changed a lot since then, but when I heard that you and Jeff were like reanimating the show, I was so excited. So what led into that? The two of you bringing the show back.
It really wasn't us. It's kind of nice sometimes when you're just toiling along and you create some of your own shows and you get you do well with them and you get to be in the shows that they have here already, and it's great. And then sometimes your phone rings and they say, "Hey, we had an idea." The people that are upstairs, the powerful people.
We're actually in the office of the Pennsylvania Ren Fair.
We're in the mansion downstairs where all the mansion shows happen. And if you get a chance to see the inside of this mansion, please. The opportunity is here for sure. Holiday open house, which is at Christmas time. It's the Thanksgiving weekend and usually the 3 weekends after that. Mm-hmm. And so this part is all open.
And it's decorated and
it's gorgeous.
Phenomenal.
And if you can't make it to that, because there's no admission charge, that's always a good one. There's a holiday show that's done. It's a dinner and a show. It's a 4-course meal. And now that COVID is hopefully on the wane, we can do table interactions and kind of go back to the way it used to be. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we're dark for January. And then February begins Murder Mystery. Again, 4-course meal, fully interactive. It's like a clue game. There's clues around the mansion that you can get up from your table and go walk around and find. You can grill all the characters. It's really fun. So where we are now, we just did an improv show here for a bus tour this afternoon in the little chapel room. So yeah, this is an incredible place to be. And if you do your work and you toil, you get promoted. I mean, Jeff, I brought Jeff in. I wanted him to try out for the Procast, and he said, "No, I don't know anything about the Renaissance Fair, so I'll be in the semi-Procast." And then he didn't show up for the auditions, and I called him, and I said, "Listen here, man, if you don't get down here, because this is the last day of auditions, if you don't get here, you're going to make me look bad."
Which is a good angle if you know Jeff. And
Yep.
if you don't know Jeff Wolfthal is one of the directors now here, is one of the major writers here, and is
Yes.
an incredible font of knowledge.
Yes.
And whatever like misgivings he may have had, you would never know that now.
No.
So fast forward to now, the duo vu is
Yes.
brought from up on high. And
Yes, they said we want to bring back the duo. Would you two be interested in doing it? And I was like, absolutely. I love working with Jeff. He's incredible. We have a good chemistry together. We fought each other on the chessboard last year for the Variety Royale because we couldn't have an actual chess match because of the. Yeah, we won't even talk about it. It's best left where it is.
it was a surprisingly resourceful year.
Yeah, I loved last year for what it was.
Yeah.
Yep. If you don't compare it to anything, and people definitely got a chance to get together and see some things and have some fun and get away a little bit and feel sort of normal, which last fall was a really good time to sort of have a little bit of normal.
Yeah.
And every week we didn't know if we were going to have the next week, so it made every week really special. And so I have no complaints about that. And so that was fun. And also being the age I am, I don't know how many fights I have left in me. So the duo vu has fights in it, so I'm happy about that. We're gonna work that out. We have to come up with some different fights than the ones we did last year, obviously. Friday night, we'll see what happens. It's going to be a teaser. We're going to do some table interaction while people are eating. And we are not going to do our normal asterisk show. I believe our directive from our boss is we're allowed to be saucy.
Which means PG. Because for those of you who don't know, an asterisk show at a Ren Fair usually means for mature audiences.
Yes, we spend the first couple of minutes of our show making sure that the parents that are keeping their children in the show know what they're in for. And also, our line is, if your child gets the joke, not our fault.
It's for those of you who've been to a Ren Fair, you know that is part of the orthodox liturgy of stock jokes.
Exactly. We what is it? Good actors borrow, great actors steal. That's a great line from a great TV show. If you love theater and you love acting, it's called Slings and Arrows. It ran 3 seasons. It's a Canadian show loosely based on the Stratford Shakespeare Festival, which is one of my favorite places on earth. And I highly recommend that you watch that. And you don't have to be an actor to enjoy it. However, if you are, or any aspect of theater, because it covers them all. It's not just about the actors; it's about the front office and investors, and it's, I don't know. I loved it, but then I'm weird. But anyway, so yes, we're going to be doing Duo vu. We have altered the script a bit to kind of reflect the times we live in. It was always an over-the-top, zany, macho show, and we've decided to keep some of that tongue-in-cheek, but it's really a show about relationships, and it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you're having. There's comedy to be found in every relationship, and so we have spent some time wringing the comedy out of it. There's going to be some improv segments in it, which will allow people to throw things out at us. We're even going to have a cool segment called Ask a Woo Master. So you can come to us with all your relationship questions, or any kind of weird question that you might want to ask us, because I don't know. I feel like that makes the show funny, and truly, then it's improv.
Yes. Yes. So we're going to have some links in the chat to get your tickets for the Pennsylvania Ren Fair. The season
Yes.
opens August 21st and runs through October 31st. And you might want to check on themed weekends because every weekend has a slightly different theme.
Yes.
And you want to make sure you come to the one that you really want to, or just get the season pass and come to all of them.
And also, in the past, and I imagine it will be true again this year, there's return to the fair passes, which are basically half price.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many people that will come in and they come once and then they like it, so they buy the return to the fair pass before they leave, which is good for the rest of the season. So it's not like you have to come back the following week. You can come back weeks later. And that's a lot of fun too, because then they have the tickets, they don't have to worry about it. They can look at the schedule and go, oh, that independent act is coming, or that band, or that theme weekend, I have the perfect outfit for that, or whatever, and so they're pretty excited.
We have a question.
Oh.
Is Matt Selly going to crash the show?
Well, the politic answer would be, you'll have to ask Matt. Who's asking that question?
I'm thinking it's probably Nick Rainville, based on the screen name.
Aha. Well, anyway, look, anything is possible. I mean, after all, Matt Selly is, he and Chris Voller took the Duo of Woo to a whole other level. I mean, they really did. I mean, they were godlike with it. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can pretty much ask anybody that saw them do it.
You might even be able to find it on YouTube.
Absolutely. You sure can. And it was so good that they wrote a second part to go with it called Search for the Perfect Wife. So and they really made that show. The show was massively popular before. I had done it in 2011 with Blake Braswell, and he now works down at Disney and Universal. He directs their Halloween show down there. He's again super talented. He had done it with Chris Voller for a year or two before that, and then I took over, and he and I had standing room only at the old Boar's Head.
Yeah.
And the show was supposed to go 45 minutes. Like, we had two 45-minute shows. The first show we did do 45 minutes. The second show, we would just keep going, and the audience would keep egging us on. And finally, it got to the point where Ron Keller, who was doing the special effects, he would be back there going, and finally he would go, bah! And he would leave, and we had no more special effects. Because he had to go to do he had to set up the joust special effects.
Right.
And the show was supposed to end at 5. And we did. We ended it like a little bit after that. But like we also had to go get ready for joust ourselves.
Right.
But the audience loved it, and they wouldn't let us leave. And it was it was just, I don't know. There was just something about it. And then a few years later, I did it with Greg Ramsey, who was the face of the Renaissance Fair. Way before I got here, kind of everybody knows him. And funny enough, he's the guy I auditioned for. And he's the guy that hired me. But in the time I got hired and the time we showed up for rehearsal, he had left. And he and his wife were house parents at Molten Hershey School, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it was I don't know, I think it was 10 years to the day he came back as King Henry VIII. And I'm like, finally, Greg, I get to work with you. This will be great. You hired me. And he's like, oh, I don't even remember you. Of course. No, of course you wouldn't. You saw me for all of 5 minutes at an audition.
Right.
And you saw literally 5,000 people. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't remember me.
No, it's a big day.
I'm glad you hired me. So then the following year, he says, hey, they asked me if I wanted to do Duo of Woo, and I can't think of somebody better to do it with than you, so you and me. And I was like, absolutely, I love that show. That'd be great. And so then we did it. And then Selly in my shows were taking off, and we were having a lot of popularity. And I was like, I'm sorry, Greg. I want to work more with Selly, and because it's our show that we're creating, and you know. And so then Greg became the Woo Master for another couple of years, and he basically did the show, which is actually formidable. He did it by himself.
Wow.
Yeah, he did the whole like Duel of Woo show, but just as the Woo Master. And so he retooled some of the bits, and lo and behold, it was popular. Every time I walked by, the place was packed. Excuse me. So good on him. And then so a few years have gone by, and now we have a new version of the Duel of Woo. We know there's pressure, and we're feeling it. and it's kind of fun to have Friday night to see where it takes us, and see what kind of sensibilities we can wring out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I kind of wish tonight was Friday night, because I'm like, yes, I really want to do it. I don't know my lines, but I really want to do this. But I don't know my lines, but I really want to do this. And like today, this morning, we were rehearsing. We're like, man, it's just gonna be so much better when we know our lines.
Or you turn that into a bit,
right? But you can only do that once. Like it'll be funny bit one time. After that, people are like, all right. Come on, man, guys, you need to take it seriously. Like we only found out we were performing maybe 3 weeks ago, and I was finishing school, and also I'm switching subjects at my school, so I had to switch classrooms, which is a whole. Anybody that's ever moved knows what that's like. So, yeah, but no excuses. Come Friday night, game on.
So come Friday night to the kickoff. Show up for Celtic Fling this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, all day here at Mount Hope. And then Pennsylvania Renaissance Faire opens up August 21st through October 31st. Links will be in the chat. My guest today has been Doug Wallace. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. This was great.
Until next time, Monday night, come to this Twitch channel to see myself performing with Jules Schrader again, and the amazing Amanda Kitchens, Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Subaltern Project Twitch channel. Take it easy, friends.